There was a time when an entire city could eat, work, and survive without a marketplace. No coins, no bargaining, no prices written anywhere. Instead, grain moved through a single institution. Labor was organized through it. Livelihood depended on it. In the earliest cities of Mesopotamia, the temple stood at the center of economic life, not symbolically, but structurally. Barley harvests were delivered into its storehouses, herds were counted under its supervision, workshops operated within its authority. From there, food and goods were redistributed outward in measured rations. This was not trade in the modern sense. It was allocation, and in a grain-based society, allocation determined survival. Before coins, before banks, belief ruled the world. In the late 4th and 3rd millennia BCE, southern Mesopotamia witnessed the rise of urban populations dependent on irrigation agriculture. Surplus made city life possible, but surplus required preservation. Grain had to be protected from dampness, pests, and decay. Temple complexes such as the Eanna precinct at Uruk and the Eninu complex at Lagash contained substantial mud brick storage facilities built for containment and control. Thick walls, enclosed courtyards, and sealed foundations protected accumulated harvests. Archaeological evidence indicates the use of bitumen to reduce moisture infiltration. Preservation was deliberate and continuous. Once grain entered these compounds, it moved into institutional reserve. It was no longer part of a household's immediate control. It became part of a managed supply calibrated for the entire city. Urban life required continuous labor coordination. Work was not organized through voluntary contracts. Instead, households owed periodic labor service to governing authorities. Modern scholarship refers to this as corvée labor, mandatory public service tied to the agricultural calendar. To understand the temple economy, it is necessary to follow a full agricultural year. In early autumn, fields were prepared and sown. Irrigation channels directed water from the rivers across cultivated land. Throughout the growing season, canals required maintenance. Silt accumulated continuously. Minor breaches could redirect water away from fields. During the dry season, organized labor groups cleared channels, reinforced embankments, and repaired gates. These tasks were scheduled components of survival. The work was repetitive and physical, but without it, the next harvest would fail before it began. By late spring, barley ripened. Harvest required coordinated cutting, gathering, threshing, and transport. Grain moved from field to collection points and from there into the city in bulk quantities. Upon arrival, quantities were measured, loads were inspected, moisture levels mattered. Grain had to be dried before storage. Improper drying led to rot. Rot reduced reserves. After drying and inspection, grain entered storage facilities. Allocation schedules were prepared. The transition from harvest to storage marked the shift from seasonal abundance to controlled distribution. Redistribution then followed established categories. Rations were not handed out informally. Distribution occurred at designated points and intervals. Measured quantities were issued according to rank and role. Barley formed the core of subsistence. Beer, produced from barley, served as a reliable and caloric source of hydration. Oil allocations supplemented diet and daily maintenance. The act of allocation made hierarchy visible. The measure received reflected one's position within the institutional order. This cycle repeated annually. Grain sustained workers. Workers sustained irrigation. Irrigation sustained harvest. Harvest sustained storage. Storage sustained redistribution. Redistribution sustained labor. The system was circular and continuous. Beyond cultivated fields lay the marshlands and river systems that formed the broader hinterland. Reeds harvested from wetlands were used for construction and transport vessels. Fish and waterfowl supplemented grain-based diets. Administrative records indicate allocations that included fish alongside barley. The temple coordinated not only agriculture but aquatic and pastoral resources. Sheep herds required seasonal management, shearing, washing, and processing. Textile workshops organized labor into structured teams. In several third millennium contexts, institutional textile production operated at significant scale. Groups of women worked within coordinated workshops, producing woolen goods. Grain sustained the internal population. Wool moved outward through exchange networks, acquiring timber, stone, and other materials unavailable locally. Internally, life operated through redistribution. Externally, exchange required negotiation and portability. Standardization governed daily existence. Units such as the sila provided measurable subsistence. Rations were structured. Adult male laborers typically received larger allocations than women or children. Skilled officials received more than unskilled workers. Hierarchy was embedded in measurement. Institutional laborers sometimes held small allotment plots to supplement rations. Household production and centralized allocation coexisted, but institutional reserves remained decisive during scarcity. Environmental risk shaped the limits of this model. Intensive irrigation could increase soil salinity over time, reducing barley yields. Archaeological and textual evidence suggests agricultural adaptation in response to such pressures. A single weak harvest did not collapse the system. Storage absorbed fluctuation, but successive weak harvests altered calculation. When storage declined, redistribution did not simply continue unchanged. It had to be recalibrated. Grain stored in institutional reserves represented future time. Each measure issued reduced the number of days the city could sustain itself without a new harvest. Allocation was therefore not only distribution, it was planning against uncertainty. Administrators balanced competing obligations. Irrigation crews required rations to maintain canals. Textile workers required subsistence to continue production. Officials required support to coordinate labor. Reduction in one category risked weakening the function it sustained. Centralization allowed recalibration. It also concentrated vulnerability. If reserves diminished significantly, the entire urban population felt contraction simultaneously. The stability of the city depended on disciplined measurement and controlled allocation. For most laborers, the system appeared predictable. Rations arrived at established intervals. The regularity of distribution reinforced institutional reliability. Yet that reliability rested on agricultural yield, environmental stability, and administrative precision. The temple economy functioned as a structure of managed interdependence. Farmers relied on canals. Canal crews relied on rations. Rations relied on harvest. Harvest relied on irrigation. Administration coordinated the cycle. When the cycle functioned, the city endured. When the cycle faltered, adjustment followed. Redistribution concentrated authority. Those who controlled storehouses determined continuity. Allocation determined sustenance. Economic administration and governance were inseparable. Alongside temple institutions, palace administrations expanded in influence. Political leaders, referred to as lugal, increasingly directed resources toward construction, diplomacy, and military organization. Surplus acquired additional political uses beyond subsistence and ritual. Prestige goods such as lapis lazuli and imported timber required long-distance procurement. Grain was heavy and perishable. It sustained local populations effectively, but was impractical for extended exchange beyond the river plain. As political horizons expanded, the limitations of bulk agricultural redistribution became more evident. The temple economy demonstrates a foundational principle in the history of value. Large-scale stability depends on centralized coordination of surplus, structured measurement, and recurring obligation. No coin circulated in daily rations. No open market set grain prices. Value moved through recorded redistribution anchored in institutional authority. Yet as exchange networks widened and political ambitions extended beyond the local environment, surplus required forms of transfer that were lighter, more durable, and more divisible across distance. In the next episode, we will examine how silver by weight became a measurable reference for value within early systems of exchange, and how measurement itself began to reshape economic authority beyond institutional redistribution.